Welcome everyone to another Schoolscape online webinar on how to take your school online. In studio with me is Alister Payne from CloudEDU, Google's premier education partner in Africa. But what I also love about having Alister in studio is that he's actually a former teacher and is the former deputy of Western Province Prep. So he really understands schools from the inside. Alister, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Hey everyone.
For all of our live viewers, on the right of your screen, there's a chat section. There's also a question section. If you have any questions, please pop them into the question section. We will address them at the end. Alister, has it been busy for you guys at the moment?
Yeah, that's probably an understatement at the moment. Yeah, listen, we've been very blessed in that much of our work is online already, and as you can quite imagine, we've been inundated with calls of schools being, by the current situation, just being forced into making some decisions. In some ways, it's a huge opportunity for schools to kind of tackle technology and some of the things that they may have put off for a while. So yeah, it's been we have been stretched to our limits, right across, not just in South Africa. So yeah, it's been fun times.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in then with more formal questions. Sure. First one, good start. What is Google Classroom?
So yeah, what is Google Classroom? So this is probably one of the questions we get asked on quite a regular basis, and probably the question we get asked the most. And Google Classroom really is kind of at the end of a journey. So in a nutshell, Google Classroom is a learning management system. I wouldn't even probably go as far as saying it's a full learning management system. It's a quasi learning management system, but in its essence, it's kind of a wrapper around all the other Google tool sets. So it's an aggregator of information. It's a place where you can collectively and safely bring children, push out and post assignments, push material, have engagements and interactions with students, get them to encourage social learning. It's that sort of platform. There are a couple of really nice tools, as I said, being able to post assignments and set due dates and see what kids have handed in. It just eases that entire process. Allows you to put self-marking forms in. There's another great tool called Originality Reports, which is a plagiarism checker, but they put a very nice positive spin on it. And then we're really excited. I think it's either today or tomorrow, or certainly over the next week, they're rolling out Hangouts directly inside Google Classroom. So it really is a powerful tool, but it's at the end of a journey. It's a wrapper around all the other Google tool sets.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that intro. One of the terms I always kind of hear is G Suite for education. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, so I mean, that's why I said Google Classroom is at the end of a journey. That's where you ultimately want to be, but often schools will look straight to Google Classroom and say, right, that's the tool they want, but they're seeing the result at the end of an entire process. G Suite is by best explanation, it's cloud-based, so there's nothing running on your school from a technology or hardware perspective. It's a simple but yet very powerful set of tools for communication and collaboration. And ultimately, if you ask yourself the question, what do schools fundamentally do at the end of the day? What is their primary business? Often people will reach for teaching and learning. It's not. They're a communication and event management business, and communication, teaching and learning is a type of communication. So it's a tool that really just helps with administration. And then it can help inside the classroom and assist you inside the classroom as well. So it's email, it's calendars, it's documents, it's all those kinds of things on an incredibly powerful infrastructure. I think one critical point to make is what it's not, and that it's not Gmail. Gmail is a consumer service where the model is around advertising. This is an enterprise level system where you are given priority on resources on the Google infrastructure. And you're given complete control of your data. So, you own the data. Google do not own the data in any shape or form. There is no advertising inside G Suite. You've got unlimited number of users, unlimited amount of data. It's license free. And you might kind of say to yourself, well, how can Google do that? And the 2,000 or 3,000 users that you may have at your school, which is important to you, and it is important to Google, they're doing 2 billion users a day. So it kind of is... 2 billion users a day. There was an article that came out yesterday, and a lot of these companies are are kind of very cagey around the statistics. But Google did say in an interview yesterday, the CEO said that they are currently processing 2 billion minutes of video meeting time a day. So the amount of data that these guys are processing is incredible. But G Suite, sorry, just to come back to your original question, it's a productivity suite. It's a collaboration suite. It runs on any device, as I said, license free. For school. So for business, you pay. For schools, it's free.
It's free. Well, I think that's brilliant because it's way more than just Gmail. I think an important question to ask is: schools have a present system. Why would they want to change?
So listen, it comes down to what your needs are at the end of the day, and you've got to choose the right tool for you as an organization. You know, if you find yourself in a situation where your current tool set is not meeting your needs, I think I may have just lost Peter for a second. I know his connectivity was shaky. There we go, you're back. Good. Sure, I was feeling lonely there for a second, but I was powering on. If you think that your current system is helping you, then and it's working for you, then great. And you're able to reach your students in a safe and secure way. And you're able to easily roll out information and assignments to them, and it's easy for your teachers to use, well, then I would stick with it. But what we are finding is that there are a lot of really complex tools out there, and where Google shines is on the simplicity and ease of use. It's intuitive and it just works. And so if you are finding yourself in a situation where you're caught and our system is not doing what we want it to do, well, then you need to consider and do your due diligence on that. I suppose the only kind of advice I would have for you is that the current tool sets that you are using, you do need to make sure that they are safe and secure, and that you're promoting an environment of academics within your environment. So, you know, we do work with a lot of schools that are kind of using WhatsApp groups and promoting WhatsApp groups, and I know that that's easy, but that's not necessarily secure. I know that Zoom is done incredibly well, and Zoom is a fantastic tool, but again, an article yesterday, New York City districts has now banned Zoom because of some security concerns. Wow. So, and again, that's a bit of a tricky one to get into, but you do want to make sure that you've got a ring-fenced environment, that if you're doing email, your kids should not be allowed to email outside your school domain. Like if they want to email and they're teenagers, get a Gmail account. But you need to control the activity within your system. That's really important.
Okay, brilliant. I think that's a good point, because security, now you've suddenly got all of these parents at home with devices, right. It becomes very important. Right. But maybe let me spin it quickly. How does Google Classroom support home learning? I'm specifically looking at a teacher point of view now. How do they actually use these tools? How do they manage the classroom? How do they engage with the students?
So, firstly, Peter, I think something we've been, as I said, inundated with queries and requests from different schools, and we're talking to heads and teachers across sort of Africa, and there is a balance between urgency and panic that we need to be very clear on. This is, and the current situation we sit with COVID-19 is a very difficult situation, no doubt about it. But one needs to be very careful of panicking. It's in panicking that we rush to do things and we make unwise decisions. So we need to treat the situation with urgency. And one of those panic decisions are we may jump to technology and actually we're creating a rod for our own backs. It's not safe and secure. So when it comes to the Google Classroom side of things, if it has been set up correctly and it's been set up with educational best practices, you should be sitting in a situation where kids cannot email outside of your school domain. In other words, you get onto our school account, your school G Suite account, and you're in our academic environment. And there are two parts to that. There's always technology and behavior sort of sitting 50-50 together. So if you've created an environment that is safe and secure, that the kids know that it's a school environment, you've covered half your territory. There's not communication all over the place. And Classroom allows you to pull all of that together and to be safe and secure and to be in an academic environment. So that's the first part to it. The second part to it is it's just easy to use. And so teachers who have little experience we've got teachers, and technology is not an age thing. I've got teachers that we work with that are 2 years from retirement that are amazing, that are just so keen to work with technology. And I've got some teachers that are sort of 2 years out and 2 years into teaching and are still a little bit cagey. So it's a desire to want to learn. I think that's the most important thing. But the tool sets are intuitive and people are on journeys, and Google make it easy. It's simple and easy. Within half an hour, again, I'm not saying you've mastered the tool sets, not by a long shot. But if you're familiar with Google and you're familiar with the tool sets and you're first time to Classroom, within an hour and whatever the case is, with some good training, you can get up and running.
Okay. Maybe if you can just help me understand, because we're getting quite a few questions, how to actually physically work. So I'm a teacher, I'm behind my computer. How do I engage with the students? How do I pass content across? Could you just dive into that kind of understanding of how a teacher would practically use it?
So again, I'm making a huge assumption here that you're a G Suite school for the moment, that your mail is coming through G Suite, and that you've all got, your teachers have all got school accounts, and your kids have all got school accounts. And that's a process in and of itself. And you need to have really good communication when you roll out something like that. But I'm making the assumption that you're up and running. I'm also making the assumption that you've got some sort of understanding, or you've been through some professional development on how to use Google Drive, because the whole collaboration space is a mind shift. But if you open up classroom.google.com, or you go into Gmail, you go to the waffle at the top and you go and click on Classroom, it will open up Classroom. If you're a teacher and it's been set up correctly, and this is again where you've got to be so careful, because if it's not set up correctly, the kids can mark themselves as teachers and start creating classrooms. But if you are a teacher, you go to the plus button at the top right hand of the screen, you hit the plus, you create a class, you add your students to that class, and then under your postings, you just post your assignments, put a due date, material that goes with it. Without showing you some screenshots, it's a bit more difficult, but it really is an absolutely simple process. I think maybe just to note here that one needs to manage your expectations on the type of work and the type of material and how much work the kids are going to be doing. Somebody said to me yesterday that it needs to be like, you need double the amount of time and you're probably going to get through half the work. And I'm not sure whether that's 100% correct, but I think you're pretty much bang on. If you're thinking that you're going to keep the same timetable that you do at school, it's not going to work. You need to rethink the time that you're going to be having with your kids. But I do think structure is important. Yes. And then the type of task you're going to set may potentially be very different. I don't know if that kind of answers the question. Without taking you through some screenshots, it would be very difficult, but it is relatively simple to do.
Yeah, I think for all the viewers out there, at the end of this webinar, we're going to make a link available where you can actually book a slot with Alister or one of his team to actually do a full demo. So at the moment, we'll keep it quite general. Another general question, Alister, which I think is really relevant: how does Google Education work with non-Google software, Microsoft or hardware, Apple products? If you could just chat about that.
Let me break it into two parts here. One, so Google Drive is two things. It's the web interface where you can obviously do Google Docs and get into collaborative space, which is amazing. Google Drive itself works with some 60 plus different file types where you can edit, comment, save them. Google Drive is also a place where you can do storage, and you've got unlimited storage. So if you're working with a Word document, you save your Word document, you open it on your Windows or your Mac PC with Word and Excel like you normally would. There's obviously strengths and weaknesses with both those products on either side. So Google Drive, as I said, is a storage place, but it also has this ability to work with 60 plus different document types. Right from the outset, Google has made it clear that they want to work on any device irrespective. The device independence is the word that we use, and they have maintained that. It works on anything. If you're in the Apple space or you're in the Android space, there are apps for it. If you're in the laptop space, that you've got the web browser, the Chrome web browser, which I think is 68% of all web traffic at the moment. Mm-hmm. And Microsoft Edge is now built on the Chromium base. Literally, if you've got a web browser, you can get into the Google.
You can use it.
It is completely device independent.
Brilliant. I love that. I think it's one of the refreshing things about Google is it can work on anything.
Exactly.
Which is brilliant. Talking devices, it can work on anything. What would you recommend? I know there's a lot of talk about Chromebooks. So kind of what is a Chromebook? Would you recommend it?
Yeah, so again, really just want to come back to the point, firstly, that Google works on anything. You know, we've got a couple of reference schools, Google reference schools across the country. Danefen College is one, and to Anthony and his team, a big shout out because they do an amazing job there as well. They've got Chromebooks, they've got Apple stuff, they've got Windows stuff, and they really know that it works on any device. You know, it works really, really well. And then you've got Parklands College, another Google reference school. That's an Apple Lighthouse school, and it works perfectly there. If you are getting into the space, so that means it'll work on any device. If you are getting to that point where you are looking at devices, you know, Chromebooks is an unbelievable device. You know, Google rethought the classic laptop, and I have one sort of.
Yeah, can you show us? What does it look like?
Oh well, this is not supposed to be a product for you, but if you know a laptop, it pretty much works and feels like a laptop, like a normal laptop. I won't embarrass myself there, but Google really wanted to rethink the way we had and worked with devices. You know, one of the major challenges is updating. You know, in a classroom, if you've got 30 kids in front of you and one or two of those devices now decide to go into a 20-minute update cycle, you know, even 30 seconds, to lose a student for 30 seconds in a classroom is just, you know, it can be a mess. And when you're up in front in a classroom, one needs to realize that it's an incredibly exposed time. You know, you're risking things, and if things go badly, a teacher's going to pull back from that. So Google really wanted to rethink this, and they purpose built it for education. So it has a 7-second, all Chromebooks have a 7 or 8-second start time, even when it's updating. So it has 2 operating systems on it. It updates the dormant operating system and just switches them on restart. So even if you have an issue, or you got to update, or you got to restart your device, 10 seconds later, you're logged in and back in and up and running again. You know, they're incredibly hardy. They work with a multitude of different applications and software. You've got the whole Android universe to work with, and a price point between, and I know the Rand dollar is spanking us at the moment, but at a price point between 4,000 and 6,000 Rand, you know, a school can, instead of buying one device of another type, you could buy probably 4 Chromebooks for that one device at the same price point. So. And then maybe just in closing, it's the manageability. You know, we've got several projects where we're managing thousands of Chromebooks, and it's one person at the click of a button pushing out a policy or pushing out a piece of software. You know, there's an amazing add-on for Hangouts that does grid view that makes it look like Zoom. And I was working with somebody yesterday. They're like, "Oh, can you push this out to my 1,600 students?" And I'm like, "Yes." And 30 seconds later, they're like, "Was that it?" And I'm like, "Yep." You control 1,000. So the manageability is amazing. Sorry, hopefully that answered the question in a roundabout way.
No, that does. And I think it's important to know that if you do have the whole school on Chromebooks or the same device, it does make it easier for the school to manage, especially with remote pupils. I know from experience, when we've requested quotes from you for schools, you generally have a recommendation of an Acer Chromebook. Is that correct?
Yeah, so obviously Chromebooks is there are a number of OEMs that are making Chromebooks internationally. We are in Africa and we are in South Africa at the bottom of the world, and we don't have access to all of those. And I know that those OEMs are working very hard. But Acer have made a commitment about 6 years ago to bringing Chromebooks into the country. So that where we talk about what's called a run rate, so making sure that there are a number of different models where there are units in country that people can get hold of. So you're not having to order something from production that takes 2 months to get there. You make your order and you get it within a couple of days. And that's a huge commitment. And Acer have been committed to growing this market and to bringing Chromebooks into the country. And kudos to them. They have brought in some amazing devices and been at the forefront of it. And it is of no surprise when it comes to the EMEA region, which is us all the middle way up to Africa, that may be corrected on the numbers, but about 40 to 50% of all Chromebooks sold are now Acer. I think about 40%. So they really have cornered a market in that regard and done an incredible job in bringing devices in. They're solid, they're rugged. Their failure out of box is very, very low indeed. They make excellent devices, as do the other OEMs as well.
Brilliant. Alister, thank you. We've got quite a few questions coming in, so I'm going to get onto those questions now. But first question, possibly and maybe the easiest, setup, rollout. if you're a school that is not using this offering at the moment, what's required? How easily can you roll out Google Education?
So, Peter, you made mention of we've got a link in our description that's got some consult times. I think the first thing would be to book a consult time with us and come and chat to us. Again, this comes back to the panic versus the urgency. There's an urgency to get things done, and it is achievable. And within a couple of weeks, one can be up and running. But you also want to engage management. If you're not on management, you want to engage management, and you want to make sure that these decisions outlive, because we are going to get through this. And I know it's tough, and people are concerned, rightly so. But we do need to look at the end of this as well and say we are going to get out of this, and the decisions we make in this need to outlive the current situation. And so you do want to have a good conversation. You want to join management. I've had multiple meetings. In about 20 minutes, I'm off to meetings with Nigeria and Kenya. But you want to have good conversations and make good decisions. There is time, but you need to treat it with urgency. The first step would be to get your email up and running, to get your staff on board, to get them familiar, to communicate really clearly with your staff, and to provide excellent professional development and those kinds of things.
Okay. Brilliant. I think it's also helpful to know that there is a company like yourself that can assist them in rolling this process out. Alister, I'm going to ask you, we've got a lot of questions here, so I'm going to ask them in rapid fire. So if you can go for short, sharp answers. First question,
go.
How safe will uploading learning material be?
So, when it comes to security, I made mention of the fact that this is not Gmail. This is not consumer. This is an enterprise level system. So when it comes to the question of security, there are three pillars behind this. The first pillar is legislation. And we have legislation that manages this space. It's called POPI. There's an even a larger set of rules here called GDPR, which is in the UK, UK and Europe, that manages this space. What it basically says is the data that you put up there is your data, and that if you ask it for it to be deleted, it will be deleted. That is legislation. All of those companies have to adhere to GDPR and POPI at huge financial expense if they do not. So that's the first part of it. And all these companies, whether you're in Amazon, Microsoft, or Google, they make a very clear statement that the data belongs to you. And again, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but you want end-to-end encryption. You want it to be encrypted from the moment that you upload it to the moment it gets into the cloud and back again. You wanted to make it sure it's secure. And Google are incredibly good at doing that. So once your data is uploaded, it gets shotgunned 1 million times and then encrypted and then sliced and diced and then spread across all their servers. So you can go into a Google data center. Firstly, not all Googlers can go into a Google data center. I believe, and I may be corrected for this, but I believe that if Googlers try and get into a Google data center, they're fired immediately. So only certain people are allowed in that data center. Once they're in that data center, you can go and take a server. You have nothing. It's all been sliced and diced and encrypted. So it is incredibly secure, far more secure than it's sitting on your PC. Google have a whole lot of tool sets that then pull that data out. I think what's more important is how do we protect our children and make sure that our children are protected online. That's the most important thing. And Google provides some really good tool sets that allow us to do that.
Awesome. Let's jump into the next question. This is from Kevin. Hello, Kevin. How do you send out usernames and passwords to all parents remotely? Mail merge is not an option because of spam, and options like SendGrid and Mailgun have no real experience with this.
Nope.
To automatically send the details. Go for it.
Okay, so this is a good one to book time with us, and we can help you with that. One, your communication has to be really clear with your parents. And I do believe that we talk about an honor-based system, but you need to be chatting to your parents and saying, hey guys, we need you to be partnering with us on this as we roll out your accounts. You need to roll out obviously a username for all of your kids. My recommendation is some sort of generic password that is time-based, that is specified just for a grade, so that you can watch it very, very carefully. Try and break it down into bite-sized chunks. So by grade or by classes in grade. that you can communicate with the parents. My recommendation is to communicate directly with those parents. So there are some, we did a large one last week, and about, as I said, we've been crazy, but 6 this week, where we've been working very, very well with it, with very few incidences.
Okay, that's good to know. I know for my child's school, we got the email and generic password for our kids to set up and then set up new passwords. So that was very effective.
There are some stumbling blocks that one needs to be very careful. There's some mistakes that can be made that you just need to be very wary of.
Okay. Next question. Our school decided to take the Microsoft Office 365 suite, which is also free for schools. My question is, can I use both platforms? I find Google easier to use. I created a new domain for Google Suite. Would you the question is it possible to use both, and would you recommend both?
That's a tough one. When you say would I recommend, that's coming down to my personal opinion on something.
Yes.
Firstly, the first take, I believe that the products work very, very well together. I know Microsoft have been doing some incredibly hard work to make sure that the authentication from the users that sit in Office 365, you can use other products. I'm not that familiar with it, but I do believe it's possible, and I know that Peter, you've probably certainly got contacts at Microsoft that can assist you with that. When it comes down to a platform, at the end of the day, my personal opinion, pick your poison. Really, at the end of the day, this is one time. There are times when picking, you can pick multiple tool sets, and I think it's fantastic. You can pick multiple devices. I think it's fantastic. But when it comes to platform, I think you've got to back yourself on something somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
And this is one where you choose one or the other, and you go in that direction. That doesn't mean that you don't use the tool sets on either side, maybe in some small shape and form. But as a unified school decision, I would pick your platform.
Okay. Awesome. There's a question here. Is it possible to have a further webinar on which the Google Classroom is outlined for us? I think 2 things. Yes, one, we can set up more of a demo, but I would recommend that you ping Alister and his team directly. We will share that link with you so that you can go through in detail for you.
Yeah, so maybe what I'll do as well, Peter, is I'll send you, we've got a resource site going out with in response to COVID-19. We all of our training was developed for face-to-face. Now, to say that you're going to do your training online, you don't do that overnight. You don't do that if you're going to ensure quality. So our team, and a shout out to Kevin and to Lisa and to Temba and to Richard on our team, who have worked tirelessly over the last 3 weeks to rewrite our basic modules so that they are now prepared for online, and we're delivering those online. We also have a set of tip sheets and resources that Kevin and the team have been working on tirelessly, that we can share and share with you guys. So there are a couple of resources out there, and some of them are deeper conversations. Thanks, Peter. I see you sent it out there now. But some of them are deeper conversations, and I really would recommend just setting up some time with either myself or Kevin. And that lists, that link down there has got the entire team on it. So we've all got consultants.
Book someone, get a meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right. So a question from Sandra. Can we use Google Classroom as a platform for staff during this time? We are using it for our teaching, so it would be good to use the same platform. So can they use it for staff communicating, chatting, I suppose, internal communication? Thoughts on that, Alister?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see why not at all. Sandra, the only recommendation I would make to you, when I taught kids, they can be a handful. When I taught my own teachers, really? Oh my word, when they play the role, they would properly play the role. So once you put them as students in a classroom, they're gonna misbehave. I know they are. That's okay.
All right, good tip. Prepare yourself. Alister, cost of Google Classroom.
So G Suite, which Google Classroom is in G Suite, license free, unlimited number of users, unlimited amount of data. Where we as a business work is we work with schools to deploy it, to bring them across, to set it up with international best standards around education, and then to train them how to use it and make sure they're using it effectively. I don't believe that if this, my cell phone over here, if this is the sum total of human technology, this thing will never, ever change teaching and learning. Never. teachers change teaching and learning. And when teachers are comfortable in an environment and they've been taken on a journey through excellent professional development, they will get to a point where they will utilize the technology to change teaching and learning. And that's where your focus does need to be. You need to be focused on really good professional development.
No, I think that's a good point. At the end of the day, it's still the teachers out there
Exactly.
that need to do it. Alice, I'm going to plow through a couple more questions. Some are very specific stuff, which I'm going to ask afterwards that you can just respond on in the section question. So I'm going to jump just a couple more. Is there a function like Breakaway Rooms?
No. So the reference there is to Zoom, where you can do
Yes.
breakaway rooms for Zoom. Unfortunately, in Hangouts, you don't. Hangouts is an incredibly powerful tool. As I said, there's some new functionality coming where you're going to be able to post a Hangout onto a classroom. But unfortunately, at the moment, they don't have breakaway rooms. That's not something they have.
Okay. Paul makes a statement here. He says, sorry to say, but because of the times, we cannot assure that we cannot assume all are already on Gmail and are tech linked. That is our challenge in most of the schools in South Africa during this time. If I do understand correctly, Paul, your question, and maybe a comment for Alister, the platform requires you to set up through the Google platform an email address for each student. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So part of using Google is you will set up an email address like kid's name at school.co.za, whatever your domain is, and that will then put all of those students onto the Google platform. Is that correct?
Yeah, so maybe just to respond to part of that, Peter, it was a Paul, I think, that asked the question, and
Yes.
Paul's absolutely spot on. We live in a country with disparaging availability of resources and needs. And certainly one of those key ones is access to connectivity. Connectivity is an empowering force. I think one would be really surprised at how many, even in some of the impoverished communities, and we work from impoverished communities up to some very affluent schools. In our impoverished communities, how many kids in a high school actually own a cell phone or have access to some data in shape and form, and to a device. So I think one would be very surprised at the level of connectivity within South Africa. But Paul raises a very, very good question around how do we tackle those situations. And my response would be, we need to give out information to those kids in the shape and form in which they can consume it. So kids who are from an impoverished community that are sitting with a basic cell phone, Google Classroom is an app on their phone. It can be offline. And the type of work that you set will probably be far more structured than it would be for somebody who's sitting at a computer with massive amounts of connectivity. Does that kind of maybe right sizing to your community and what they have available? But Paul's absolutely spot on. There is disparaging needs, and there's we in some ways we've got to put pressure on legislation and on our cell phone providers. Hopefully not standing on any toes there, to provide greater and more connectivity in our impoverished communities. We need to accelerate that as best we can.
It's important because some teachers here might be from schools with that scenario where students are in that situation. I think this is a great question here. How data hungry is Google Classroom? What is realistic? How much data are they going to chow through?
Right. So remember I said it's a data aggregator. So it depends on the type of data that you're putting out there. You know, in your Google Classroom, if you're posting Vimeo videos and YouTube videos that are an hour long each, of course the data usage is going to be higher, but that's not Google Classroom. That's the type of content that you put out there. When it comes to Google Classroom, Google Docs, and Gmail, it is incredibly nimble. And incredibly light on its feet. I don't have exact data at my fingertips, but by way of an example, a Chromebook does an update every 6 weeks of less than 50 meg. Like if you do that comparison to other devices in the marketplace, that is minuscule compared to the hundreds of meg of data that has to be downloaded. So we find that I mean, again, maybe a practical way of explaining this is, do you know how YouTube and Google feels so fast?
Yeah,
because it is fast. It's light on its feet and it's nimble, and it doesn't use a lot of data.
Okay. Well, that's brilliant. I think literally now I'm down to the last question because we have gone over time. Does Google use the personal information from the users?
Okay, so that's reverting right back up to the beginning. Firstly, let's tackle the one around Gmail, the consumer account. So Gmail, a consumer account, is a advertising model. We know that.
Yes.
So what they do with Gmail is that your data, they look at, you're planning a holiday and suddenly there's travel agents on the right-hand side. It's called targeted advertising. They don't sell your data, they do targeted advertising. That's Gmail, the consumer. G Suite for education is a consumer is an enterprise level account. It's not a consumer account. You own all of the data. All of the products in G Suite for education have no advertising whatsoever. Google do not look at the data. They only process the data. As I said, it's sliced and diced a million times. Sliced and diced for you, and it's sliced and diced for Google. They do not see your data.
All right. Brilliant. Alister, thank you. I think this has been incredibly informative. I think what's really encouraging for me is this is a tool that can work for any school online, not dependent on the background or the access they have. It is a tool that is built for any school. So that to me is super exciting. I'd just like to close saying thank you, Alister. We appreciate your time. I know Alister will stay online now and answer some of the more technical questions. So you can keep an eye on the questions. He'll go through that. Also, I'd like to end with just saying, CloudEDU, Alister's business, is top rated on School Advisor. So we can highly recommend them. If you need help, please jump on, take a free 30 minutes of his time just to understand what Google entails for your school. And I'd like to close with one of their reviews because I thought this really, really well. The review was on School Advisor from Pioneers, and it says, we can highly recommend CloudEDU Solutions knows the ins and outs of the school environment, and that is what sets them apart. They are always willing to help out, whether it's with software, hardware, or even ideas around teaching methods. They are innovative and come up with solutions that fit our specific school perfectly. They have a quick response time. So I thought that was just a great review just to sum up CloudEDU. So Alister, thanks for taking the time out. Thanks for sitting online now and answering some more questions. Thank you to all of our viewers.